Hello, Ron Briggs, Blackmore, Vale Honey, and welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we're going to be looking at making an observation hive. So this was a mad, wacky idea. I've literally just come up with it this morning. But if you do get to see this video, then it's obviously worked. So we're just in the planning stage at the moment. So for those that you've been watching the honey house build series, where I'm stood now is what's going to be the covered area where I can do the work and melt the wax out and everything else. And when I was laid in bed this morning, I was thinking about the season and things that happen this season. One of the things we've got is a cutout, because we do bee rescues. And one of them, the bees have got into the siding of a barn, into the framework. So that, coupled with the fact that this is going to be built in, I suddenly had the idea, why don't I put an observation hive in this wall? I know, mad. So the only thing I'm doing at the moment that I had to think about was the width that the actual battens are going to be in that wall. That's the only thing I need to worry about at this moment in time if we're going to do it. So let me explain that in a bit more detail. So like I said, at the moment, all I've got to do is, when I build my framework in there, is I know roughly where it's going to go, but I've just got to make sure that when I put the uprights in of the 4x2 sawn, that I put them in the right place, that it's ready to accept this. So this is the only measurement I need to worry about at the moment. The rest, I've not even put pen to paper, I've not even thought about it. My first thought is I'm over the association apiary tomorrow morning, doing the checks and the feed and stuff, and I know we've got an observation hive up there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow that, bring it home so I can sit down with it and take a load of measurements and try and work out what I'm going to do. But even if I decide I'm not going to do an observation hive, it makes no difference to what I'm doing with this framework. It'll just mean that one of the uprights is in a slightly different position. So all I've got to do to allow for space is, so whenever you're making anything for the bees, it's recommended, and I kind of agree, that you don't use anything with treated timber. Not that I think the bees will really care, because I've done enough rescues now out of barns and sheds, and they make their hives in places that have got treated timber. But obviously if we can avoid it, we do. So my rule of thumb is if the bees are going to actually touch it, it's not treated. So when it comes to making roofs and hive stands and parts of floors and things like that, I don't mind using sawn. But anything the bees are actually going to touch, I'll use prepared timber, which is what this is. They call it prepared or PAR, planed all round, but it's different then in size to the sawn, because obviously it's been planed all round. So all I need to do then is, if I get some this is 3x1, this is all I've got an offcut, but it gives you an idea for the width. So if I get some 3x1 or 4x1, sorry, and I have a piece that side and a piece that side, to accept the size of the frame. This is British National, it's a standard brood frame, because that's what I'm on. So, and then once this is in, then we can worry about, we'll put pieces of timber inside to support the frame. So my only dimension I have to worry about at the moment is the width of the frame, plus one of these that side, one that side, and then probably, I don't know, 3mm wiggle room, I guess, on each side, just in case the wood swells or gets twisted. So I know these are 20mm, so I've got 20mm, 40mm, one for the other side, plus the width for that. And you know what, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. So what's that, 40, 42, I think, 42, 43, add those two, that's going to be the distance that we put the battens, and that's all we need to worry about. Right, so once this wall's up then, which will be another couple of days I guess, then we'll come back and we'll talk further on this project. So we're ready to start thinking about this observation hive. So first of all, just ignore those two bits of timber that are running across there. They are literally just in there to help me with what I'm going to be doing to build this hive. So that piece of 2x1 on the bottom, for example, this all I've done is moved it up because that's going to sit on the back there, because that's that spacer to sit the metal on. So all I've done is moved it up, and it just gives me something to push against. So this seemed like a great idea at the time. It's actually given me a bit of a headache. There's loads to actually think about. So let me just show you this briefly. Right, so I've only got this much space, which is 96mm, and in there I've got to get a front cover, a glass cover, the actual hive itself, and because certainly the back wall is only metal, need to get some a back wall in there, and also I want to put some insulation in because metal can get really hot for the outside of a hive. So I want to put insulation front and back. So that's what we had to think about. So from the front, then this is going to be the front. I've got 25mm sawn. So basically the tongue and groove will sit on the outside. So I'm trying to keep things simple for myself, is because in here is going the sink. So if I put anything on hinges, the outside door won't be a problem because I could hinge it that way and it's probably out the way. The inside door though, that's got the glass on it, is obviously going to be fouling with part of this. So it's only ever going to open at maximum to level with that. That might cause me, at the very least, that's going to be awkward for putting the frames in and out, if it's going to allow me to do it at all. So what I decided to do is to keep it a little bit simple. I'll just put the front can rest on the bottom there with two handles and two turn screws, turn knobs, whatever they call them. Then we can lift that off, put it to one side, and we'll do exactly the same with the glass. So that way the two doors are completely out of the way, and it allows me to work in there as and when I need to. So that's kept things a little bit simpler because it means we don't need to worry about hinges and doors opening and the rest of it. But I've still got to fit that door in. So the front panel is going to be made up of just the paneling, which we know is 22mm, but it doesn't matter how thick that is because that's going to be on the outside. Then on the inside, I want just to keep it all together, it needs some meat on it, so we're going to do 25mm on the inside, and then between the 25mm and the outside, if you like, we'll put insulation, and then outside or inside the door, whichever way you look at it, is going to be some 9mm ply. So that's where we are with that. So we've got 25mm, then 9mm ply, and then we've got this is going to be our door with the glass in it. So the door's going to have some, it's actually 6.4 laminate in the middle of it, and then the actual door itself is going to be made out of some 2x1, so it'll have just shy of 7mm on each side of that. Now actually that's not a bad thing because I can actually use that 7mm if I'm clever with space, and then behind that we'll have the actual area that we need for our frame, and then behind that we'll then need the internal wall. So the internal wall is also going to be 9mm ply, and then behind the 9mm ply will be the batten, because we need that for putting the metal on. But if we put that in the right place, between that that batten and the back wall is a 1-inch gap, so not between it, so that goes on, but between the metal on the outside and the back wall is going to be a 1-inch gap, and again we can fill that with some 1-inch insulation. That's all tight. That only leaves me about 2 or 3mm to play with. It didn't quite work because originally I was doing it with 12mm ply, but we've now gone down to 9mm ply for the back of the door and the back wall, and that should work. So we're going to get some materials, and now we're in a position to start. But the first thing is it's not just a case of working that out times 6, because we want six frames on a full-size nuke, and that's what it comes up with, because there's other considerations as well. We've got to put a floor in, we've got to put a roof of some sort in, we've got to think about feeding, we've got to think about ventilation, and all that really good stuff. So I've got that plan of roughly what I'm going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the floor. So the floor is going to literally start on the bottom, literally right on the bottom, and on there will be some of that plastic Cordex, I think it's called. Now if you remember, if you've watched any of my previous series, basically it's going to be the stuff I put on the walls in the honey house, because it's perfect. It's 5mm thick, it's white on one side, we can cut that down and we can put that in on the floor. Then sort of right on the bottom, so not even on the floor, right on the bottom. Then the actual floor of the hive I also want removable for cleaning. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build up that bottom, enable to a void area in the bottom of which where the floor's going to go, and where then we can work out where we're actually going to put some insulation. Because the other thing I want to do is, I've got them cut down there, is I want to put 2 supports in here, one in there and one up there. But until I know where the actual hive's going to be, I can't put that in. So I'm going to build it up as I go, in essence. So the first thing we need to do is worry about the floor, the bottom part. Now the bottom part is obviously doesn't need the internal door to it. So what we said was, what we definitely need in here is we need the 25mm batten, one of these, with the 9mm ply behind it. So that's going to come to there, right? So that's the bit that's going to lift out. And then behind that is just going to be this void for the floor, because there's going to be, on this first part, the actual door, the glass door, viewing door. We don't need that on the first part. So all I need to start with is, and I'm going to go with 12mm ply, I've already got it cut, as opposed to 9, because I'm going to rest the floor of the hive on it. So I wanted something a bit more meatier. I didn't think 9mm was quite enough, so we'll go with 12mm. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to put 12mm on the back, and then two chunks of 2x1 prepared, which are going to come out roughly to where that pencil mark is, for the first part of the floor. So I'll do that, and then I'll come back once I've got it in place. So there we are, that's the first part. Because what I'm going to do when I put the actual removable floor in, I'm going to use this to rest it on. So the back wall of the hive will start above that. So this is the space I'm working with. So now I've got that worked out, I can now actually work where I want to put two air vents in here, one in here and one in here. And I want this one to come, or they've both got to go all the way through, both battens. And then I'm also going to put an air vent in there with a cover on it, just where you'll see that as we build it up later. So next thing then, mark this out and get these holes drilled. I can drill all the way through. Not sure what size we're going to use yet, and then we can put some mesh on that. So that's my next job. So I'm going to be putting a bit of Varroa mesh over the holes, because I obviously don't want the wasps getting in, or the actual bees getting in, especially when it comes to feeding. So we've got some Varroa mesh. So I thought I'd quickly show you this. I buy my Varroa mesh on a roll, because obviously I make my own floors, so it's good for making your floors. And I get it from a company called PLUK Pluck, which I've just joined the dots together and realised that's the same company as Tectron UK that make the stuff. So yeah, I've been using this stuff for a couple of years now. Brilliant. You can get it all sorts of grades, all sorts of sizes. Look them up online. That's where you get your Varroa mesh from. Right, so where are we at? So now we've got that in. That's glued and nailed. That's all nailed in. And then the piece of 4x2, not 4x2, 2x1 that was on the back is now in its proper place, which is here, running right the way along the back. And then what we've got, another piece now, we've put that in there, because that piece needs to support the back of this, the back of the floor of the hive, and then the back of the next sheet that's going on the top. And then this is going to be our floor, and it's been deliberately left loose because we want to be able to we don't want it to swell and struggle to move it. So there is deliberately a couple of mil left over. And then you see, the idea now of this is, the reason we've cut this like this is because that will stop the back of the floor. This has got a bit more meat on it than the 11mm, which is going on above it. So that's got plenty to sit onto. So the next thing I need to do now is I need to cut the middle of this out and put the mesh floor on it. So we want to come, basically, we want to come 12 mil out here. We can do the, there's going to be no front on this. So again, probably 12 mil out there. We'll cut that. And then also don't forget there's then the supports that are going up for the actual frame. So we can actually afford to come quite a way in. So we need to cut that bit out the center, get some Varroa mesh on that, and then we can worry about the next bit. So now that's in, we can work out what the actual size of the hive's going to be. So we know how deep our frame is. Our frame is 215 millimeters. Now bee space is 6 to 9 millimeters. So if we call that 7.5, 7.5 mil for a bee space, that means that each frame and bee space is going to be 222.5 millimeters. So we times that by the 6, that gets us up to 1335. We then need to add our bee space to the top. So we'll add another, I don't know, 6 mil to the top, takes us at 341. So that is going to be the size from the floor to the actual roof of the hive. And I've marked that there. So that is there. So that's going to be the roof of the hive, and that's going to be the timber. So it's the same as the bottom. So that'll be the roof with some air holes and a feeder hole in the top. And then from there, then we can know where we want to put a batten. We're going to put a batten in there. That's center, so that will be another air vent through there. And then we'll have 3 air vents through the top and an air vent back out on that side. And don't forget, it's the wriggly back on it. So each one of these is going to be open. We'll put some inset mesh in it, so that will be open to the elements there. And then where the air vents go through here, again into this void, but then there'll be air circulating all the way through. So now we know where that is, we can also work out where this little noggin here's got to go. So we're now in a position, I think the next thing we need to do is to cut or fit that noggin in there and cut that noggin with the breather holes at the top. Because when that's in, we'll have something to secure the board to. So that is what we will do now. There we are then. So first thing I need to say is I made a schoolboy error with my maths. I said each one of those was 215 mil, and then I added 7.5 mil, which made it 22.505 mil. It was half a mil, and when I added them all together, I'd made it 0.5 of a mil instead of 0.5 of a mil. So what that meant was that my overall size was 3 centimeters too big. Fortunately though, when I was working out where I wanted to put the screws, I actually marked where each frame was going to go, and then I had too much left at the top. So then I re-looked at the maths and worked out what I'd done wrong. Fortunately, it was the right way around for me, and I just take a bit more off because obviously you can't add it. And the other thing I did was I just, when I put it in, I just put a couple of spaces on to start with, so that the floor is quite loose, yeah, because when that swells and gets wet, it'll be difficult to get out. So I wanted that in there fairly loose. So that's that. So there we are then. So we've got the back on now. The behind there is a piece of 2B1, and there's a piece of 2B1, which is in the right place, because then that gives me a big area to put the roof on. We've screwed to the bit of 2B1 at the back. Then now you'll see why I wanted a 2B1, because the 2B1 stops is the stop for the floor. But what it did do by doing it that way around, it gave me that extra, well, 12 mil from the bottom and 9 mil from the top, to give it that support. So that's what we did there, and that's why that went there. Brilliant. So the next job then is going to be to fit the roof. To fit the roof with a couple of, well, three. There's going to be a breather hole, and a hole in the middle, which will have a cap on it we can remove if we want to feed fondant. So that's the next thing, because then once we got that done, we can then work out where the batten's going to go across there and the air holes on the top. So this is fun, isn't it? That's the next job. So end of the day then, let's just have a recap of what we've done. So we've got the bottom part in, which is the floor, if you like. The reason for that depth is so we could get a couple of air vents in each side, which is done. The floor's in, and that's nice and loose, so that can come out to be cleaned. The back panel's in with these in, and it's measured where they're going to, where each one is going to go. The top one is in and secure. And there's three holes with a mesh on two of them. The middle one's been left out. We're going to put that one on with drawing pins, because if we need to feed the bees, we can take that one off and put some fondant on. Then we've got an air vent in there and an air vent in there, which is quite cool. And then the top, right in the top, we've got three air vents as well. And you might think that why are we meshing that one when we got that one meshed as well? Well, don't forget that wriggly tin, when it's in, it's going to have all the holes at the top and the bottom, and I'm going to do the best I can to block them up. But you know what these wasps are like, they're tenacious little sods. So if they manage to get into the top, they won't be able to get through here. Likewise are the ones on the side. So where else are we at? This piece of 4x2 is in and finished, ready to accept the metal backing. We need to fit another one in the middle, exactly halfway between that one and the bottom one. We need to fit one in. Once we've got that in across the back, you see we've got this one at the top of the actual hive body and this one at the bottom. The one will go right across the middle, and then above that and below that we'll put insulation. Okay, so we're back on it. All we're doing now is, so on the back of the observation hive here, it's this sheeting that's going over the top. So we've got the battening in for putting the sheeting on, and if you remember, I said it was exactly an inch. So I've got some inch insulation. Always normally got an inch insulation knocking around, because I use it in the top of the hives. So if I ever see any, I pick it up. But actually it's not that expensive for a sheet. So all I'm doing is putting that in there now. I don't need it to be really secure in there. All I need it to do is just stay there until such time as I get the metal cladding on. So all I'm doing is, I don't know if it's working, I've just got a bit of this stick and spray that we've used from other projects. I'm just going to spray that in there like that. And then hopefully, should have measured this first, make sure I cut it right, I suppose, but there we go. And then, there we go. Everything that was made to fit in there. There we go. So, as far as the observation hive's concerned, that's kind of it for the moment, because when I put the panels on the back, that's all in another video. So that's it for the moment. I can get my panels on now, get it weather tight, and then we can carry on building the rest of the observation hive later on. So hopefully you can make this out. So the principle of this is exactly the same as, do you remember the door we made when we did the door for the potting shed? So all I've got, because I'm restricted on space, remember, so instead of going for sawn, I've gone for some prepared, some 2x1 prepared, and I've made a frame, and it's a simple frame that's sitting on 9mm ply. So all I've done is I've cut the ply to size, glued and screwed this on here, and that's given me this framework. Now you might think that this is up the wrong way, because obviously the support on a piece of timber there's more strength that way than what there is that way. But when it's you're making a door like this, it's absolutely fine, because it's all about staying square, and the piece of timber is keeping it all square. So that's my frame. So I am going to put insulation in it, but I was going to use Celotex. I was going to get some 20mm Celotex, because even though it's only a small amount I need, as I've said to you before, it's I always put Celotex in the top of my hives for insulation all year round. So 20mm would have done. However, they don't stock 20mm off the shelf at all the local building supplies. You have to get it more specialised, and you have to pay for delivery unless you order over a certain amount. Well, obviously, I'm not going to buy £15 worth of Celotex just to order and then have paid £70 odd delivery. So what I've got instead is this. So what this is the foam that they use for underfloor heating. So it has got some good insulation properties. Whether that's as good as Celotex, probably not, with the foil wrap and everything else. But bear in mind, your normal beehive, wooden beehive, is 18mm thickness. So I have got 9mm of ply. I've then got the 20mm of this, and then there's 20mm of cladding on the top of that. So it's going to be absolutely more than what we need. So it'll be absolutely fine. So I can't remember. So this was a sheet. Actually, I got this from Amazon. So it's 900 by 600. No, it's 120. So 1,200mm by 600mm. And I think it's going to be really easy to cut. So hopefully I can get, there's enough of this to fit all of that. So that's what we'll do now. We'll get it cut up. See how easy it is to cut. So this is not got to come in or out. The cover's going to be over the top of it, so that'll be no problem at all. So the next thing then will be to cut a piece. No, we're going to cut a piece this way, I think we said, and then we'll cut a piece in there rather than having a small bit at the top. Right, so that's what we'll do now. So there we have it. So that foam was actually really easy to work with. So my plan was to cut it and then use some of that little just spray adhesive stick just to stick it in place whilst we actually put the cladding on the outside. But that's gone in there so firm, we won't need to do that. So all we need to do now is transfer that outside and sit that in the hole that it's going in. So there we go, that fits in there a treat. And all I've done is there's no gap on the bottom because it's gonna literally sit on there at the bottom, so there's no gap there, and then there's a 2mm gap then all the way around, just to help me getting it out. And if the wood swells, that'll be okay. And all at the moment it's just literally being held in by one screw, because now with that in place I can now fit the cladding. I can't use the nail gun because the galvanized nails that I've got are 50mm, and the depth of the cladding is 20, the depth of the timber is 20, and the depth of the the ply is 9mm, so that's 49mm. Plus, when you drive them in, they always tend to sink in a little bit, so that'd be too long. But I have got some 40mm galvanized nails, so we'll be using those instead. That's what we do. So we'll just get on as much cladding as what we possibly can now, cut it up and get it in, and go as high as we can. And we'll go so far up, and then we can take that, well, now we've done some measuring up there, we can take that top piece off and cut that up as well. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so we've got the parts we needed to carry on doing this observation hive. So I'll go in closer in a minute, but what I've got is got the two handles and the two turn screws or turn knobs, whatever they're called. So we've put them on there now, so above halfway, so that when we lift it up, we haven't got to bend down to the floor. And we've got the turn screws on, which I've deliberately left really tight at the moment, holding that on, because now that's held on there, I can remove that little screw that's holding it all together and get the last couple of bits on. Then when the last couple of bits are on, we can actually get the sliding bolts on the top. So let's crack on with that for the moment. So there it is, the outer cover's finished. I've put the sliding bolts on the top. Now the only thing with the sliding bolts was the screws that come with it were 25mm, and obviously the depth of my cladding is only 20mm. So I've had to change those out, and the only ones I had that were 20mm were those little gold ones. So I probably will get some smaller silver ones, 4x20s maybe, and change those out. But other than that, that's pretty cool. Now the reason we've got the sliding bolts up there, as well as the thumb screws, they're not thumb screws, are they? Turn knobs, I think they're called. I could have put turn knobs at the top, but I'm a bit worried that with vibration they can move. And although it would probably never happen, if all four moved at the same time, that could fall out, which we obviously didn't want that. And secondly, my grandson, who's massively into his bees, he's 4 years old, when he sees bees in the wall here, it is going to blow his mind, especially when he doesn't have to wear his suit to watch them. So I know what that little toe rag's like. He will come and he will try and get in here and have a look at them. So we've put a couple of sliding bolts at the top, well out of his reach. And obviously just to make it all a bit more secure. So, moment of truth then. Let's see how easy it comes in and out. I've got a feeling this is going to be quite heavy, because it's got all this cladding and that framework and stuff behind it. Right, so we'll loosen those, get those pulled out. Oh, actually it's not too bad. Yeah, it's quite chunky, but it's not too bad. Yeah, that's all right, no problem at all. That gives us access into the hive. I'll wrap you back in. Is that going to be a faff? No problem at all. We'll see what it's like in a few weeks' time when the wood's swollen and shrunk, etc. But at the moment, yeah, really happy with that. So the next stage now then is to work on the inside, work out what we're going to do there. So let's have a little look at that. Okay, so now the cover's done. Now we need to work on the inside, which now we're starting to run out of space. So I don't know if you can see that from now. We'll bring you in closer in a moment. But onto this piece of timber is where the door sits. So all I've got now is that piece in there, which is around about 60mm. That's all I've got to play with. Now, I need 36mm from the frame. The frame sits in there. So if that's 36, 60, that leaves me about 24mm. But what I can do is 20mm for the glass door that's going on the outside. But of that 20mm, obviously the glass is going to sit in the middle, so I can actually steal some of that hopefully. But it's a case of building it to see exactly where we go, because I am going to need a few millimeters on the outside of the glass for things like how I'm going to secure the glass door into the actual hive. So the first thing we're going to do is just worry about this. So these can actually sit, the frames can sit right up against the back wall, and then all I've got to do is work out where the blocks of timber are going to go each side that then can support each frame onto. So that's what we're doing at the moment. What we've done, we've cut these so that they didn't fit any kind of standard size of timber, so I've had to cut them down. So I've cut them down from some 3x2 CLS that I had left over, because the nice thing about that was when I cut it down, that left me one corner, one of the rounded corners on the CLS, which just means that just finishes that corner from when we put the cover on. So we're just about there now. I worked out I had 7.5 millimeters between each one and a 6mm gap at the top. So I don't know what I've done wrong, I don't know what's happened, I don't know if the wood's swollen or shrunk, but in essence I've got a 1mm gap at the top. Don't forget it's bottom piece space, so I'm not worried about that. And I've got literally 6mm space between each one, or 6.5 mil, 6.5 mil. So I've got away with it, but I would have preferred to have just a fraction more. So that's one thing. And the other thing I've done is because I've glued these in, because they were just too thick that way. Don't forget it's only a 9mm board behind, so there's nothing really to screw it up to, so I've just glued them and we'll let that go off. And then what I've done, I've just used, these are 1.5mm spacers between every one, so that when it's when we take it all out, this won't be really tight. There'll be a bit of wiggle room for when we put the frames in and out. So that's why we've done that. So we have it, so that's all glued up. You sort of get the idea now of what it's going to look like. A couple of frames in there, look. That's that. Next job will be to work out a frame for the glass and then go and get some glass ordered. Okay, so turning my attention now to the door of the observation hive. So what I've decided to do is I've got some 2x1 planed, or planed all round PAR. This should work for my purposes. So what I intend to do is, I'm not going to put it together quite yet, but I'm going to make imagine a picture frame. So we'll miter it all down, so we've got the 4 sides. So I've got 3 pieces. This piece is long enough for top and bottom, and then I've got 2 longer pieces for the sides. So all I'm simply going to do today is I'm going to cut out a rebate to accept the glass. And the glass is 6.4mm laminate. But what I don't have is a router in order to be able to do that, a table router. So I'm going to do it on the saw bench. So basically what I'm going to do is my saw, I think it's about 2mm, 2.2mm, something like that. So we'll do a series of passes with each one, just moving it over ever so slightly. So we end up with a 6.4 millimeter rebate to accept the glass. Then what we'll do, we can kind of put it together, see what size glass we need, but then we'll get the glass and sort of marry it all up together so we get it exactly right. So all we're doing today is doing the rebate. So in order to do that, my table saw has this safety cover on it, which also acts as an extractor to take away the dust and stuff. And I've also got a workshop air filter, which we'll be putting on because dust is nasty stuff. But I've got to take this off. So what I'll be doing, I'll be taking this off because I've got to take this off the back to be able to pass the timber over. But then what I'll do when I put it on, I'll put on the extractor, which will take some of it away, top and bottom. But I'll also use my hoover and I'll put on the extractor as well. So next job is to remove this. So all I simply do is unscrew that and remove that. I screw those 2 pieces back together, which helps for not losing them. And that will just lift off. And then when we actually come to use it, we'll still put it on, so it'll still act as like a hoover and take some air for it. But what I've got to do now is, in order to remove this part of the saw blade, which is what they call the ripping knife, I have to take this plate off in order to get in there to remove that. So I'll do that now. Okay, so we've removed the ripping fence from the back of the saw, because that will now allow the timber, when we put a cut in it, to go all the way over it and obviously not hit the ripping fence. So the other thing I've done, I've set the depth of my saw to 12 mil, because 12 mil is quite a substantial chunk actually. So if we have the glass in that deep, 12 mil all the way around, that should be plenty. And then what it does do, it leaves me plenty of meat on the actual the rest of the timber to attach hinges and however I'm going to secure the door into the actual frame. So 12 mil is plenty, so 12 mil all the way around. So we've set the saw to 12. Now when you set it, I've used the calipers, set 12 mil, and then just held that over there and set the height of the saw to 12 mil. But if you are setting a saw, you should always finish up. So you wind the saw up slowly till you get to the height you need, not on the down, because if you wind it up, that takes the slack out of all the gears, so it will stay at 12 mil and it won't drop a bit. So that's the first thing we've done. Now, the thing we have to remember now is, because we've removed all this safety now, so we've got to be even more on our game. Well, whenever you're touching one of the saws, the power saw, you should be always on your game anyway. But just remember, there's no safety on this saw at all now. But the next thing I need to do is to set the ripping fence to the size we need. Now, if you remember that we've got to have this, we said about 7 millimeters. The glass needs to be 7 millimeters in from the actual observation hive. So my first cut wants to be 7 millimeters from the ripping fence to the edge of the saw. Now it's obviously going to be to this edge of the saw as opposed to this edge. So the edge of the ripping saw, that's the edge of the saw that's up against the ripping fence, because that will give me my exact 7 mil. So that's set. All I need to do now is pass, and what we do, because we're going to adjust this each time just to get that rebate a little bit bigger, we'll pass all 3 pieces over first on this size, and then we'll do the same again by moving this slightly, which I'll show you in a moment. I'm just going to move you out of the way ever so slightly. It's going to get noisy now because I need to put all the machines on. So that's the first pass done. So that's given me about a 2 mil gap. Obviously I need to get that up to 6.4. So all I'm going to do is, I'm not going to go exactly 2 mil that way. I'll probably go just a millimetre big, just keep making it a bit bigger, and instead of doing 3 passes, do 4 or 5 just to make sure I get everything out of it. So all we have to do then is we need to make this a fraction bigger. So we go that way now, just ever so slightly. There we go, just touch too much. And now all I've got to do is exactly the same and pass all 3 parts, 3 bits over again, making it a bit bigger. Let's do that. Right, let's see where we're at. So I don't know if you noticed, I did a couple of passes then on that one. So first thing we got is our 6 mil, which is this part. So we'll just make sure that's it. It's actually 6.5 mil, which is absolutely perfect, because by the time I get the glass in, there'll be a bit of wiggle as well. So you see that's 6.5 mil. So the next thing is the gap in the middle needs to be 6.4 millimeters. So again, I'd much rather have that, don't want that too tight, we want that slightly on the forgiving side. So if we make that about 7 mil or thereabouts, because we're going to put some of that silicon and glue, that, you know, that hybrid stuff, we're going to put some of that in it to seal it all up. So let's go 7 mil on the calipers. So, but because this gap in the middle wants to be 7 mil, we now need to know that this piece in the middle, if I can slot that into the gap there, then we know we've got 7 mil, and it won't quite slot in yet, so I need to do at least one more pass on the table saw. So we're going to do that now. So there we have it then. So yep, that's still on 7 mil. So on my gap there, that just fits in there, beautiful, look, just slides in. So I know that 6.4 is going to take to that quite nicely. So that's really cool. It doesn't take that long, does it? It can be done with a table router. It'll be done in one pass. Well, maybe two, depending on what size bit you've got. But you can do it with the table saw. So that's that done. Now what I need to do is measure up for the actual get some glass. So let me do some measurements. First thing I want to do though is put this table saw back together, because I really don't want anybody, you know, son comes in occasionally and uses it, so I want all this safety back on before anybody comes in and thinks it'll be good. Just rather than put it all back together, you just throw the piece of timber over it. So let me get that put back together. We'll do some measurement and I'll come back and tell you where we're at. Okay, so let me show you where we're at with the observation hive. The weather for the last week has been absolutely glorious, so we've been concentrating on outside work that needs to be done. So this observation hive's kind of got left behind a little bit, but I have received the glass back and I did finish making the door. So let's show you where we're at. So the glass door's in. Let me turn you around. Okay, so there we are. Right, so you saw me making the framework for it, and then I got the glass back, and it was just a case of mitering the edges on the chop saw, which is really easy to do. And then I used a bit of miter mate on the corners just to glue it and hold it. And then I've put some of that, you know, that hybrid silicon and sealant in the grooves first, and then I'll put the glass in. So I've got the glass back, like I said, we've got it cut. Now then when we went to put it in place, I was very much trying to work out how I was going to keep the door in place, because there's next to no space for either handles or locking mechanism or anything. I did think I might try and get a couple of Allen keys, small Allen keys, and put them in as like bolts to hold it. So in the end I thought, well, actually, because when we do the inspection of this one, all we should be able to do is take the outer cover off and look at it. We'll see queen cells or anything like that. So the only time we're really going to go in there is when we come to swap it over into full-size colony and then put a new one back in. So I thought, well, the easy thing to do then will be just to screw it shut. That way, if anybody takes the outer cover off, there's absolutely no way they're going to get in there. So that's exactly what I did, and it seems to work all right. So I was initially worried that obviously the drill was going to upset the bees when we do it, but when I come to put bees in or take bees out, I'll just use a screwdriver, and then we can do it nice and calm and gently then. But for the moment, I'm just going to use a drill. Let me get that glass off and show you. Right, so first of all, I don't know if you can see that, what I was on about now with the, so with the depth of the glass into there, that's giving me that extra space I needed to make sure I got bee space. So, and then the other thing we did, just to be belt and braces, was I got these corner brackets. So even though I mitomated and glued the corners, just to give it extra support, I got those corner brackets. The other issue that became apparent was, if you remember back to the beginning, we made a floor with a Vero screen in it. Well, now it's in place. This is the whole length of the hive, the whole width of the hive. So when I put that door in, it's covering a lot of this. There's no need for it to be this thick. And the other thing was, it was just fouling on this because a couple of these little bits of mesh had just turned up a little bit. So it was just catching and fouling. I mean, it worked, but I thought, well, what are we going to do about that? So I've simply cut a new floor, and all I'll do is, I don't know if you can see the pencil mark on there. That there is how width the actual Vero screen needs to be. So we can leave the rest of it whole. So I've got a new floor. All I've got left to do is just cut a bit out of it, and I'll probably reuse this piece of Vero mesh to go into it. So we've done that. That worked. So all round now, we've got a nice, and it's been in for some time now. We've got the bee space is right. In some places it's right down on the limit at 6mm, and others, so that one's 6mm, that one's 7mm, but they're all about right. They do come out nice and easy, the frames. So yeah, that's it. So the only thing we've got left to do now is to, well, we've got to sort that floor out. And the other thing is we've got to put the entrance in. I've bought the disc to go on the other side. So we've got that to do, and we've got the floor to do. So once I've done that, or whilst I'm doing that, I'll bring you back and we'll have a look. So I didn't expect to get this finished today, but we had a couple of hours, and so we thought we'd get this finished. So if you remember, all I had to do was cut an entrance hole in and to reduce the size of the floor, which we've done. Slots in there just nicely. So we're pretty much there as far as the build's concerned. So what I had a choice. I was trying to work out just from old bits of pipe that I had as to what size entrance I was going to make. So I had a choice of that size. I can't remember what size it was. That size, or I had some 32mm. Or 38mm, should I say, 38mm waste pipe. We had a bit of that left over. So the size of the disc that we've put on the other side, let me show you. So the size of the entrance disc, if I was to turn that round to the entrance look, you'll see fully open is the size of that 32mm waste pipe. So that's the size we decided to go to. But what I've done is this hole in the metal is a bit smaller than, so that's 32mm, that hole. Let's close that off. And the pipe, I think, was 38mm. So we've cut a bit off the end of the pipe, because inside there's all the foam and stuff, and I didn't really want the bees walking backwards and forwards and that. So there's the offcut of the 32mm pipe. And obviously I can replace this as often as I want. I've had to put a bit of, just a little bit of Gorilla tape around the outside just to thicken it up a bit. And then that can sit in there. And that gives them a nice entrance. So that's it. So that's now that done, that's that done. So two more things I want to do. One is I've noticed that where the air vents are, can you see how we've got mould that's come on? So what I want to do is I want to rub that mould off, and I'll put something on there, whether it be I don't know, maybe a PVA or a yacht varnish or something, because it's not actually inside the actual hive, it's just treating it. Otherwise that's going to get a lot worse. And funny enough, it's exactly the same on the top as well, although not quite as bad. So I'll need to treat that. We'll do something with that. And the other thing I want to do is I want to put a couple of hooks along there to sit a nuke box on, because my thinking is once I every time I swap the bees over, when I come to actually have to move the bees out of it, I have to take the bees out, put them into a nuke box, and then leave the nuke box by the entrance for the rest of the for the bees that are left on the inside and all those that are returning to come back to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build put 2 hooks in, or 2 brackets in, to sit a piece of timber on, so that every time we do that we can sit the timber on and have the entrance of the nuke box right next to the entrance of the hive. So that's it. So that's all I've got to do for the little job. So what just one more thing, I've just reviewed the video and I think I forgot to mention these breather holes. So these go in through there, and then there's a chamber up through there. So in that chamber, what I've done, I've put two air holes in, one there and one there. And this one I've deliberately put there because I'm hoping that you'll be able to sit on here and maybe smell and hear the bees doing their thing in the hive. I don't know, might work, might not, but either way I needed a hair hole, so that's why we've done that. So there we have it then. That is the observation hive build done, or pretty much done. So what we'll do is we'll end the video there. I'll get it published because it's going to be another, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks before we'll have any bees to put in it. And then what I'll do is I'll bring you back, we'll look through it again, I'll show you those last couple of little bits I've done, and we'll see what it looks like with the bees in it. One more thing I forgot to mention is, if you remember this stuff, for those who are watching the videos, this is what I put on the wall of the honey house. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to cut that down and put that right in the bottom as like a varroa tray. So that's what that's for. So varroa tray's got to go in, a bit of varnishing or something for the mould, and a platform of some sort on the outside. And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you got something from it. I'm really looking forward to getting the bees in it. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.